Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell, and today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who's wondering if her relationship can survive a big change. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
No, we are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this. So please take our advice as you see fit in your life. Sam and I are only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding, but mostly confusing experience that is love. But before we dive into today's letter, it is Monday, so we're going to do a quick check-in topic. Today's check-in topic is inspired by just some musings that I was having in my head in the shower after reading the letters for this week. And we're answering letters about, should I break up with this person? Should I get married to this person, etc. And I was just sort of wondering and reflecting on past breakups in my life and big decisions that I've made. And I just wanted to muse with you a while. And I just wanted to muse with you a little bit about the idea of whether or not we are always 100% sure when we make these big relationship decisions. I want to ask you, number one, do you think people are normally 100% sure when they make the decision to break up or they make the decision to be together or whatever? And how can we move forward through our lives and make these thoughtful, authentic decisions the times that we maybe don't feel 100%, and how can we move forward and continue to make decisions for ourselves confidently when I would argue it's not the norm to feel 100% sure,
Sure. That's right.
I don't know. I might have jumped the gun there, but what do you think? Do you think people are sure, or are you normally sure when you make these decisions?
Here's what I'll say. Is that I, the decision to get married was a pretty sure decision. I wasn't I think that there are always doubts in these types of decisions for sure. But I was 97% sure about getting married. I think that breakups, at least for me, are much less sure things where it's things are not great, but they could be fine. And also I think I'm just the type of person to be okay, this is fine, and just keep going with it. I don't like to disrupt things very much. I just kind of go with the flow. And also my role in my family was the one that always just went along to get along. So it's hard for me to think about disrupting a whole relationship or living situation or whatever it is because somehow I need something different. That's hard for me to imagine. So I think that at least for me, I was very sure about yes, I want to take this next step in my relationship with Peter specifically. But I think that in most instances, I am rarely sure, and I rarely act on any of that surety because of my own learnings and my own neuroses about making people uncomfortable.
I agree in terms of getting married, moving forward. Looking back on my breakups, and granted, it's funny that I host this show now because I'm atrocious at breaking up with people. I mostly just fade into the bushes like Homer Simpson. But looking back, all of that inaction in my breakups was because I wasn't sure, and that I felt, not only did I feel confused about my feelings for people, but that I felt I didn't have the agency to make those decisions, that
for sure.
My feelings alone weren't enough for me to be I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. And I guess I want to bring this to the check-in topic table, because I think I want to normalize that it's not a signifier that you're doing anything wrong or that you're like ill-advised or you have poor intentions if you make decisions without having all of the answers or all of the surety, especially in romantic relationships, you know, especially early on dating people or you know, breaking up. Like, I would say it's a very tall order for you to feel 100% sure that a relationship should end, especially when you at one point, hypothetically, probably had an affinity and respect and love for this partner. You know, I think that it's probably more often you have this like nagging inkling inside you that like this isn't right. But that nagging inkling inside of you is surrounded by feelings of nostalgia, feelings of appreciation, feelings of, you know, not wanting to hurt that person. And so it's kind of hard to amplify that little nagging voice, you know?
Yeah.
Hence talking about it here.
That nagging voice is around you all the time in lots of different instances, right?
Totally.
Where it's like, how am I supposed to discern like what's not right enough for me
totally
to
agree.
do something about this versus like, we live in a capitalist system where we like have to go to work in order to eat and like get healthcare. And that doesn't feel super right, but I continue to do it. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many different places where I think because of the world that we live in, we live out of alignment with so much of our intuition, our connection to other people and to ourselves and to the earth. And like, I think that it can be really hard sometimes for us to discern like what's not right enough for us to make a change about versus like what is not right. And we just have to deal with it because that's kind of the world that we live in, you know? And like, and at what point are things so not right that we have to make some sort of decision about making a change? Because like, I don't know about you, but like I can put up with a lot of stuff because like that's kind of like what my kind of operating way has been is like, yep, I can deal with this. And like, I'd rather deal with this thing that I know than like this other thing that I don't know that might be worse than this thing that I know, you know? So like, that's also part of it. So I think that like, yeah, it's hard to discern these types of things. And I also like, I have a lot of empathy for folks that are writing to us and are like, I'm not sure. And both of us are sitting here being like, seems like this isn't great.
You'll
like,
see
I know that
shortly.
you're like 40% sure, but Sierra and I are definitely 97% sure that like, this isn't great. Like, but being in it is so hard, partially because like, so many of us feel so disconnected from our intuition or our ability to like trust our own understanding of what is happening.
Yeah. I do feel like in relationships I've historically I like tamp down any feelings of uncertainty until they just explode or whatever. But in in my professional life and in other realms of my personal life, my wife and I joke that I have like what we call like the 51% gene, where like if I think maybe I want to do something, I just like if 51% of me thinks I could do something, the other 49%, it just doesn't matter. Like, I will do it.
I love that.
It's one of my favorite things about myself, and it's served me really well in my creative career because it's like, oh, do you want to make a living as a fucking spoken word poet in your 20s? 51% of you, I throw my whole life into it and be like, yep, the 49% behind me is just going to follow. It's just going to come, you know?
I love that. I wish that I were that way.
Yeah, but it's also a little haphazard. Like Willow and I often joke that like she gets nervous when I'm 51%ing because she's like, do you think we can do this? And I'm like, oh no, yeah, totally. We can definitely do this. It's going to be fine. Yeah, Sam's sweating.
I'm really sweating. We're really sweating.
Yeah.
This is helpful though, because like maybe I should incorporate this 51% thing into my life more often.
Yeah.
You know, because it's
51%.
like there are some places where I'm really good at that. And some places where I'm just terrible at it.
51%. That's all you need. That's all you need. You can do it.
51% sure that I can do this thing. So
yeah. Oh, it's kind of like a blind ambition is what I refer to it as. Like, you know, truthfully, it's what started this podcast. I was
true.
like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast with my friends, and my other friend is going to produce it, and it's going to be great. And you're like, okay, yeah, we'll have 100 listeners. And I was like, no, we're going to have more than that. Because I was sure, we're just going to do it. We're just going to do this podcast. We're going to make it a thing. And we did. Anyway, I don't know how that applies to breaking up. Because I don't think you should break up with somebody if you're like, no, actually, I totally do. If you're 51%, yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a high number.
Oh my God. 51% is the new black.
You're 51% sure you should definitely marry that person.
Yeah, it definitely.
I don't think that's true. I think you should be more than 51% sure when it comes to marrying.
I think so too.
/ like having a baby or like moving in together.
I take it all back. Anyway, just random musings about like how it's normal to not be sure, or it's normal to be confused. How about this? I think it's more normal to not be 100% sure than it is to be very sure. There we go.
I think that's true for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe like me and the 51%ness in me, maybe it's better to like move confidently forward in the direction of your feelings, because the other things might just be holding you back.
For sure.
See, 51%. All right.
Do it.
Let's
I love
start
it.
this podcast. All right. Today's letter is coming to us from Uprooted Vegetarian, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from the Northeast. Dear Sierra and Sam, I'm nearly 29. I've been dating my incredible 30-year-old boyfriend for a year and a half, living together for 6 months. He is loving, supportive, and shares my hopes to get married and have a family someday. I would like sooner than later. He wants to, but on a slower timeline than me. He got laid off in fall of 2023 and hasn't been able to get a new job since then. He took a course to make a career change into tech this spring, but the job market is tough, and as things stand, he's gotten past the final round of 2 jobs, one back in April with no luck in the end, and 1 job last week, and he's waiting to hear back. He told me the company makes inventory management software, but I only just discovered from him after the last interview that it's a poultry management software, and it's highly likely an offer will be contingent on him relocating to their headquarters 900 miles away from our home in the Northeast. We both want to stay here, close to our families and the city we love. I started a new job this spring at a museum that is my perfect fit, and I can't see myself giving it up. On top of all of this, I've been a vegetarian for more than 15 years. The thought of him visiting slaughterhouses on implementation sites makes me sick. If this were happening in a movie, I would think the irony is hilarious, but it's my life. Our relationship has been seriously rocky since he moved in with me to my studio apartment, no less, in January, with fights about money, habits, plans, the future, you name it. We started couples therapy last month because we want nothing more than to make this work. I love him so much it overwhelms me, but I'm so afraid. I don't think our partnership is currently strong enough to do long distance if they make him relocate for any more than a few weeks at the start. The fighting has made me feel empty inside, the lowest I've ever felt, and my friends and my mom are noticing changes in me. If he leaves our home for this job in an industry I have found so morally repugnant my whole life, I don't know what I'll do. He feels so desperate for a job in the tech field, for any job, because his self-esteem has been so damaged by the job market. To him, this would be an offer he can't refuse. I want to be supportive, but I don't know if I should uproot myself for this job that he may get. And I don't know if or how I can beg him to turn it down if it's offered. I just feel so exhausted, and I want the world to go easier on us. Any advice you have to give is so appreciated, and thank you so much for being such kind souls. Signed, Uprooted Vegetarian.
All right, Uprooted Vegetarian, thank you so much for writing to us and for asking us this question. I'm sorry that your relationship has been so rocky over the course of the last few months, and that is taking such a big toll on you. You know, when you say that this is the lowest that you've ever felt, that just makes me so sad to hear, because, you know, I don't want you to be feeling that way. And I know that you obviously love your partner and you want to be with him, and also this relationship is making you feel really bad. And that's never a fun place to be in. So all of the love and empathy and kindness to you in this moment of, struggle, this moment of you feeling really bad about yourself and this relationship, and really questioning whether this relationship has the strength to be able to navigate through what I would say probably is its current iteration, and also any future iterations that involve things that may strain it even more than it feels currently strained. So we're going to get into some love and some advice for you in just a minute. But before that, we're going to take a short break.
All right, my darlings, welcome back. And to our letter writer, thank you so much for trusting us with this letter. Sam's totally right. Like, I think that these are really important questions to be asking yourself. And I want to say two things right away. I want to tell you that it's okay if your boyfriend gets this job, decides to relocate, and you decide that that's not what you want for your life, even if you love him. That's okay. That's okay. Let me relieve you of the feelings of helplessness, because you, or like maybe lack of agency, you are allowed to make the best decision for your life, even if it means saying no to a good love. Okay? That doesn't make you heartless. That doesn't make you selfish. That makes so much sense to me why you wouldn't want to move 900 miles away from the life that you really like and want to continue there. Okay? It also makes a lot of sense to me that you wouldn't want to do that with the last 6 months being really tricky, which leads me to the second thing I want to say. And I mean this lovingly and gently, but as bluntly as I'm going to say it. The beginning of your letter describing your relationship, to me, doesn't match the relationship that you have described to us throughout your letter. You say, and I'm not it's not that I don't believe you that they are both. I know they're both. I know that your boyfriend is incredible, that he is loving and supportive, and you guys share this hope that your relationship will work out and that you will get married one day. I believe in that. But I just want to point out how disparate that is from the person and the relationship that you described in the second half, which is, we've been fighting 6 months. It makes me feel like, what did you say? Not yourself, empty inside. Yeah. So much so that your loved ones have noticed what a toll this is taking on you. And I say that because you wouldn't just be moving 900 miles away from your loved ones and your life that you enjoy to be with that incredible boyfriend. You would be moving to also be with the one you've been fighting with for 6 months. And none of this is to dehumanize this. It is totally normal to fight. It is totally understandable to have conflicts over money and habits while you're living together for the first time. Like, that adjustment period is totally normal. I just want to make sure that you're not over romanticizing the relationship to stay together over the, I want you to be seeing the whole picture here. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree, because we can't make relationships work off of potential. We have to actually look at what our relationship is and how it's functioning. And, I think that this sort of idea of this career change and this move you're sort of like glomming onto those things as being like, oh, these are the things that could break us. And I want to come back to the present reality, which doesn't seem like it's working super well. Right. And I know that you two are in couples therapy, and I really think that that's a great idea, especially if you two want to figure out how to navigate this relationship together. But, for 2/3 of your relationship at this point, not 2/3, for a full third of your relationship at this point, things have been so rocky that you feel empty on the inside, and that this is the lowest part of your life. Right. Like, that's big. That's something that you should be paying attention to. And you don't, and I want to give you permission to look at the relationship in its current iteration and say, maybe this isn't working for me. You don't need an excuse like a big move or him taking a job that you find morally repugnant to give yourself a good enough excuse to break up with him. You know, like you two fighting all the time and you feeling this is the lowest point in your life and that you're empty on the inside is reason enough for you to decide that this person isn't for you, or that this situation in its current iteration isn't working.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. Like again, you know, I talked about this in the check-in topic. I'm so much like a person that's like, well, this is fine because that something else could be worse. You know what I mean? That like, I deeply understand this kind of like, oh, I'm at the lowest point in my life, but hey, it could be lower, right? Like I totally understand that like impulse of like, I don't want to disrupt things. I don't want to end things. Like I want to offer you the idea that like, you're telling me and Sierra here that you're at the lowest point in your life and that the fighting that you two are doing and the way that your relationship is currently showing up is making you feel empty on the inside. That doesn't feel like an, okay, fine, let's work this out type of thing. This feels like something big needs to change here because you can't continue to live your life like this, right? You can't be feeling empty on the inside like this anymore because that's not a supportive and loving relationship with an incredible person. That's like a relationship that isn't working very well with somebody who is, I don't know, not in a place to be able to love you in the way that you need to be loved.
Yeah, and I think what we're trying to shift here is, you know, we can't answer the question of whether or not you should move or whether or not you should break up. What we're trying to do is shift your perspective away from, what is it called, a red herring? No, when it's like distracting.
Yeah, like in a mystery, like a red herring is like a clue that doesn't actually,
right? Yeah, sweet. I was right. Well, you know, this is another example of Sierra overthinking common phrases, like you can have your cake and eat it too. I was like, well, the red herring, it's just like, it's like bright and flashy. So like, it probably is something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you're like, yeah, it's a distraction, you dumbass. Okay, so it's like a red herring. You've presented us with this. Oh, it's a Trojan horse. There we go. You presented us with the Trojan horse problem, which is my boyfriend wants to potentially move 900 miles away. Should I go with him and support him in an industry that I don't morally support? Yeah, that's a real problem. But inside that fucking problem is the fact that you have been unhappy at home to the point of your loved ones noticing how you are not yourself anymore, that you are empty inside, and that your relationship for a third of your relationship has been like the hardest time of your life. And we're just trying to shift the perspective to the question isn't, should I move 900 miles away with this person I love? The question is, why am I so content in this unhealthy space? What can we be working on to better the energy and the health and the flow of our relationship? Because guess what? Relationships are hard. They are work. I admire that you are in therapy. I admire that you speak so highly of your partner. And I don't know if I've ever described my hard times with my partner like that. And that's not a better than thou thing at all. I just want to put it into perspective that, like, I think Sam and I are worried that you aren't legitimizing the discomfort you're in right now. Because you should, because that will lead you to the answer, which is you're not ready to move 900 miles across the country for him. And that sounds so reasonable to Sam and I. We are more than 51% sure that is the right decision for you.
Yeah, I don't think you should move. No, and absolutely. If you had written this letter and said, you know, my partner is going through a really hard time because he has been looking for employment for a year and I'm trying to figure out how to be supportive of him, and he's trying to figure out how to deal with this without it causing me harm, right? Like, we're trying to tackle this thing together to figure out what the next iteration of our relationship looks like. Like, that would be a really different letter. And I would be like, okay, sounds like you two are trying to figure out this thing. But your letter was like, we're fighting all the time. he's about to take a job that, you know, I find morally repugnant, and he might need to move 900 miles, and I don't know if I can do that. And it's like, okay, then it sounds like this relationship isn't functioning in a way that like is supportive of either of you in this moment. And it might be because of all of these different circumstances that are kind of part of what's going on now with his unemployment and with this big job move. But it doesn't sound like you all have kind of the foundation set up to be able to support each other through this transition and through this like really low period in your life. And couples therapy may be able to help you with that. And I think that that's what you need to be focusing on here, right? Like, how do we build the foundation for us to be able to navigate these things in our relationship that are happening with us, rather than sort of being in this place of like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And if you're not feeling the foundation is there, then my question for you is, what are you doing about that, right? Are you too committed to tending that foundation in a way that can help build towards something? Or are you in a place where you're in a foundationless relationship, which is not someplace where any of us want to be? So that's what I'm offering you in this moment. And I know that it's like really tough love. I know that's here. I have been like kind of hard on you in this relationship in this moment. But we want to do this not because we think that you shouldn't be in this relationship or that you are somehow like not smart enough to figure out these types of things, but because we want you to know how it feels for us as people who care about you and as folks who have an outsider's perspective of relationships and also have been in situations where we've both put and invested a lot of time and energy into relationships that didn't have a strong enough foundation for us to be able to navigate day to day, let alone some sort of big change that's coming up in our relationship. So sorry. It's just like, it's such a shitty situation. Like it's like sometimes doing this podcast makes me feel so callous because I'm like, look around, friend, this isn't good, but I don't want to be. I just want to be like, I'm so sorry that this is all happening. And I wish that your circumstances and that this relationship was functioning differently, but it's not. And that is just such like a hard place to be in.
That needs to be tended to first, right?
For sure. Absolutely.
Okay. We know you have a lot on your plate, but we believe in you. We even believe in your partner, but things have to change in order to be different right now. We hope this helps.
Absolutely.
We love you.
Thank you so much for listening. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into your DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of David Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, you don't have to fit yourself into every box that people throw at you. You don't have to say yes to life situations that don't serve your ultimate desires. You are in control of your life and your destiny. And if all else fails,
just break up.